Okay, in this video, I'm going to take you through this video, which says it's the biggest cheating scandal in Formula One history. Okay, now before I start, some of you aren't going to get it, all right, because you just don't have the capacity to understand. This is not trying to be derogatory towards you, it's just that some of you are retards. It's just what it is. Now, let me try and explain this to you in simple terms. Most of us are fortunate enough to grow up under the magnificence of Western democracy. You've gone through the indoctrination system of our education system. You know, Tony Blair, the world's most famous war criminal, his mantra always was education, education, education. Indoctrinate the people with false beliefs. So you've done that. But when you're going through school, you remember going through the system to prepare you to be a compliant worker. When you were going through that, it was really by some way a test of your ability, your aptitude for academic learning. For some of it, all right. It didn't focus on people's attributes. It didn't actually seek to nurture and progress people's natural talents and skills in different areas. It was just a one size fits all program that everybody had to go through. But well, I say somebody, many people just didn't meet the criteria in certain fields. Now, imagine, I grew up in the UK, and our system was you stayed in mainstream education up until the age of 16. And when you were around about 16 years of age, you sat some examinations, which then would determine your future, potentially. And they would assess your academic ability in certain subjects that you'd been indoctrinated with information about. And you then had to regurgitate information that you'd been told to be the truth. And if you were good at regurgitating that information, you would then get a good grade. And then if you wanted to further study that same subject, you could then study either at sixth form college or college A levels, a higher level qualification in that same subject you'd already been a decent achiever at. And then the education system is so that if you wanted to go to yet a further higher level, you could go to university and again study a subject which would probably you demonstrated you'd got the understanding at the lower levels, which would give you the base level to then enter university to be able to receive the information of that level of education. Now, you see, let's just take a random subject as an example, chemistry, for example. Let's say you were taught about chemistry up to GCSE level and you were shit, all right? You got to take your GCSEs in chemistry and you got a F grade. You were crap. You didn't get it. You didn't get many right answers and you only got an F grade, right? You wouldn't be allowed to go and then study an A level in chemistry. I wouldn't let you do that because you've not even got the basics. You've demonstrated that you've not even got the aptitude to understand the basics. So you wouldn't be allowed to go and do chemistry A level. And then you certainly wouldn't be allowed to go to university and study a degree in chemistry because you've demonstrated you can't even achieve at GCSE level. Right? So them same dynamics apply to Formula One. All right. Essentially, if you did go to university, the lecturer out the front, who was the professor of chemistry that knew what they were talking about, they'd be trying to educate those people who were seeking to gain an understanding, gain a degree qualification in chemistry. And you, F grade student at GCSE, you'd be putting your hand up going, the answer's fish! The answer's fish! And that wouldn't be the answer, all right? But you'd be adamant that the answer was fish, and you'd be then screaming and shouting in the lecture room saying, you're just a hater, you're just a hater, I know, the answer's fish, you're just an abuser because the answer's fish, fish, fish. And what it would then result in is that all of the university students who were trying to learn information that they could then build upon for the future of mankind on our greater understanding, that could take the understanding forward and then go exploring in different directions, you'd actually inhibit their understanding and inhibit the chance of mankind moving forward, because you're too interested in whatever it is you're interested in. But you feel entitled. So, like I say, some of you just won't get it. The information that I'm presenting is beyond you. All right. So don't you worry, little heads. All right. Go and look at the videos where it's just the fast cars going around the track. Vroom! Okay. That's really nice for you. This is a bit more technical, and don't you worry, little heads. But the rest of you that want some sort of understanding about what's really going on here, we're going to go through this scandal. And one of the things that we need to keep in mind as we go through this video is that we're talking about, they're calling this the biggest cheating scandal in Formula One history. Well, it's not, because fixing a race in front of a global audience of 108.7 million people, the Abu Dhabi 2021 fraud, is bigger than this, and it's going to result in much bigger financial penalties for all that were involved, unless they're trying to manipulate it and they're in control of manipulating it, when they'll decide what the penalties are going to be. But as we go through this, think of similar incidents, because this is talking about the intellectual property of one team being transferred to another team and what that team does with it. There has been since then at least 2 occurrences of it, and that would be the Tracing Point team copying the design of the Mercedes team, and the Aston Martin team, which is the same team owned by the same billionaire Lawrence Stroll, copying another team's design. So Lawrence has already copied the Mercedes team for one of his year's cars, and then in another year, when he's realised it's now a different team that's the dominant car, he's copied their design. So the now Aston Martin team has copied the Red Bull design. Now we're going to go through this video. Okay, it's on the Daily Fuel Up. If you're not already subscribed to them, go and give them a try. See whether that's your sort of thing. It's a video that's had 1.8 million views, 2 years old, and we're going to go through it now. Some good information on it. Feel free. Well, I not feel free. I urge you to go and look at other sources as well to validate the accuracy of the information that they're talking about. All right. This is what we should do. We should look at lots of different sources and evaluate what's true here and what's not. So let's have a look.
On May 2nd, 2014, a man got out of his car, walked onto the M20 highway in Kent, and right into the path of an oncoming lorry, seemingly taking his own life. The man was pronounced dead at the scene, and yet the medical examiner would leave his cause of death as an open verdict.
So, did somebody commit suicide, or was there some foul play involved? Has somebody been killed? Again, don't know. I don't know. This is just what's being presented in the video. I'm just trying to make you fully aware of what's being said.
Many suspected a conspiracy, and for good reason. But why am I talking about him? Well, this man was Nigel Stepney. He had been Ferrari's chief engineer, having been at the team for 14 years, and he was also the man behind the biggest scandal in Formula One history. This story is one that F1...
Obviously, this is before Abu Dhabi 2021 and before the world knows the full details about that.
Doesn't even want to acknowledge at times. Severe punishments, nasty politics, fractures and rising tensions across the sport, search warrants, arrests, and even a war on track between Alonso and Hamilton. This scandalous affair is one that was almost too tragic to believe. And this wasn't just a chapter in Formula One. It started long before the actual scandal saw the light of day. So if we want to understand why things happened the way they did, we must go back to the old days, to the McLaren era and the man who ran it, Ron Dennis. The most successful decade of McLaren's history began with the merger of Project 4 Racing and Ron Dennis. In the 1980s, the team had won 7 championships under the leadership of Senna, Prost and Lauda, and in the early 1990s, with the
Are we talking because that McLaren car was dominant? Could anybody have won in that car? You know, because when Mercedes car was dominant, the hate boys say, oh, anybody on the grid could have won in that car. So because Senna, Prost and Lauda won in the McLaren, does that mean anybody could have won in it? Or are they just the greats that could have won in it? But because Hamilton won in Mercedes, anybody could have won in it. Where's the energy?
legendary Ayrton Senna at the wheel, McLaren looked ready to prolong their domination in Formula One. However, Ron Dennis's era of glory hit a roadblock. The McLaren found themselves in a prolonged struggle for nearly a decade. One of those stumbling blocks was the fact that Williams rose to the top of the industry due to Adrian Newey's groundbreaking designs and
Adrian Newey's groundbreaking designs is the way it would get presented. You see, back in the day, the information being fed to the supporters was the magnificent power of the Renault V10 engine being superior to everything else on the grid. Okay, we didn't have the energy in Formula One just trying to diminish Nigel Mansell as a driver when he won the championship, powered by that Renault V10, and all the other teams on the grid wanted a Renault V10, but Williams had it. But no, it's the Adrian Newey genius. Now, was it Adrian Newey who developed active suspension, or was that somebody else in the team? Again, a device on the car that gave that car a competitive advantage. Is anybody trying to diminish the achievements of Mansell because that car had that on it, giving it a performance advantage over other cars? Are we calling it technical innovation? Are we calling it illegal? How do people want to project? What is their level of hate towards who? Why are we presenting it's Adrian Newey's genius again? Is a large part of that performance of the car down to the engine and the notion of active suspension? And what is Adrian Newey's? I thought Adrian Newey was an aerodynamicist. Okay, the man who wrote the thesis on ground effect. Is that active suspension? Is suspension somebody else's department?
Revolutionary active suspension. And as if things weren't already tough enough, Honda suddenly disappeared, leaving McLaren to find a replacement engine. After a failed agreement with Renault and a disastrous 1994 alliance with Peugeot, McLaren's problems were only getting worse. The rescue came in 1990.
So what you have got other teams competing, and some do it better than others. You've got different companies that manufacture engines, and some are better at it. Oh, they're cheating. Are they? If that fits your narrative, that fits your narrative. Doesn't mean that it's cheating that's going on. It might mean that some people have just produced something that's better.
When the company formed an alliance with the German automaker Mercedes. David Coulthard's victory in Australia in 1997 marked the beginning of a turnaround for McLaren, who had had a difficult 1996 season. Things would take a turn for the better as Adrian Newey came on board in 1998 and 1999, with the Papaya outfit winning 2 consecutive Constructors' Championships. But at this point, McLaren had no idea that this would be the last time they would win a Constructors' title.
Was that the year where they had this fiddle brake, 2 braking pedals, so you could brake different sides of the car differently? An Adrian Newey genius. That's cheating, isn't it? Don't worry about that.
In the years that followed, Ferrari, Renault, and of course Fernando Alonso took centre stage, leaving McLaren to struggle for over a decade to regain their former grandeur. In 2006, McLaren would suffer a major setback when Adrian Newey left for Red Bull, with the pressure.
What year was that? 2006. When did Adrian Newey's cars start winning titles again? They won a few under Seb when Seb was driving there, and then how long was it again before they started winning? Quite a gap for a genius.
Pressures mounting and teams racing ahead of them, finding a way to get McLaren back on top was an immense priority for Ron Dennis. The team needed a competitive car, and most importantly of all, they needed a special driver lineup. They certainly got.
Introducing.
Let me just fast forward the ad.
Enter Fernando Alonso, two-time world champion and Michael Schumacher's personal nightmare, and Lewis Hamilton, one of the best prospects the sport has seen in a long time. Both of them were the horses to bet on. This race would have outside interference. Enter Nigel Stepney, Mike Coughlin, Trudy Coughlin, and an unsuspecting photocopying shop employee. Nigel Stepney, chief mechanic at Ferrari during the team's successful heyday with Michael Schumacher, was at the core of the Spygate controversy. Stepney was not just desiring a promotion, but also felt he was rightfully entitled to one when the strong alliance consisting of Schumacher, team principal Jean Todt, technical director Ross Brawn, and chief designer Rory Byrne came to an.
So what have we got here? Is Rory Byrne a genius, the way that they make Nui out to be? Is Jean Todt the catalyst for success? Is Ross Brawn the catalyst for success? Or is it Michael Schumacher? Is it or is it a team? Is it getting the combination of everything right? Somebody that can design a good car and having put in place a structure to enable the driver to win. Is that what it is in order to what it takes to actually win in sport? Or is it just one person that can do it on their own? Just like Max Verstappen can, everybody. Max Verstappen, the best you've ever seen.
An end in 2006.
At the end of this year, I've decided together with the team that I'm going to retire from.
So Schumacher decides to retire in 2006. So Alonso's won the championship twice for Renault. So Schumacher fucks off. All right.
From racing.
His desire was motivated by a combination of factors, including his belief in his role in turning Ferrari into an F1 powerhouse and the disappointment he felt from unmet promises.
I am looking at spending a year away from Ferrari. I'm not currently happy with the situation within the team. I really want to move forward with my career, and that's something that's not happening right now. Ideally, I'd like to move into a new environment here at Ferrari, but if an opportunity arose with another team, I would definitely consider it.
In response to his comments, Ferrari announced a new role for Stepney as head of team performance development. Their statement read, after many years spent working on the Formula One circuit, the last 13 of those as part of the Ferrari race team, Nigel Stepney, with approval of the company, has chosen to take on a different role that will see him no longer have to attend the races. Now that's the corporate way of saying get the out. With his dreams dashed, Stepney would turn into Ferrari's worst nightmare. He secretly broke into the Ferrari factory and stole 780 pages of sensitive documents, which meant he effectively had the schematic drawings, technical reports, pictures, and financial information for the 2007 Ferrari. He then gave these documents to a trusted associate of his, Mike Coughlin, who was then also McLaren's lead designer. Their plan, however, was undergone when Mike Coughlin's wife, Trudy, walked into a copier shop, a stack of 780 pages in hand. She instructed the clerk to scan the documents onto 2 CDs. Now, ordinarily, this would be no big deal, but one of the most recognizable emblems in the world, the prancing black horse of Ferrari, was printed on every page. And for a copy shop clerk, that usually wouldn't mean anything, but this clerk, he was different. He was a die-hard Ferrari fan. Sensing that something was amiss, he asked the woman for her name, and Trudy told him. When Trudy left, this clerk decided to Google who she was. The man found out she was Michael Coughlin's wife, the lead designer for McLaren's Formula One team. After that, he used Google to track out Stefano Domenicali, the Formula One sporting director at Ferrari.
Domenicali, the now head of F1. These people that know the dirty shenanigans that go on within Formula One and are running it and are still covering it all up because it's all a show.
Mr. Domenicali, the clerk typed. He then proceeded to reveal the peculiar story of the woman who had what seemed to be highly classified Ferrari documents in her possession. Domenicali found the message from Surrey the following morning when going through his email. Trudy Coughlin then received the 2 copies of the 2 CDs a few days later. She then destroyed the originals to get rid of the evidence on Mike's instructions. But little did she know, the time bomb had already begun its countdown. This event becomes even more intriguing when we find out that Nigel Stepney had been suspended by Ferrari a month ago on suspicion that he had tried to sabotage one of the Formula One cars at the factory.
And also in the last couple of weeks we had the news that the Italian police are investigating the senior race engineer of Ferrari, Nigel Stepney, amid all kinds of allegations and rumours about sabotage and espionage as well.
Stepney, of course, strongly denied the allegations. Those allegations...
You can strongly deny all you like. A lot of people, when they are cornered and say, well, you're the one that's done that. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. Oh, he strongly denied it. Of course, everyone strongly denies. Doesn't mean you didn't do it.
However, would stay in his shadow all his life. Battles broke out in the Italian and British courts, as well as inside the domain of F1 authority as the situation's severeness grew. It was decided that Mike Coughlin had behaved independently. The stolen data, though, had certainly reached other members of the McLaren team, but doubts continued and were eventually cleared up at a later hearing. The repercussions were harsh: a whopping $100 million in fines and disqualification from the Constructors' Championship were handed down for the unlawful acquisition of knowledge that was...
The unlawful acquisition of knowledge. $100 million fine and disqualification from the Constructors' Championship. Well, surely copying another team's design is that not an unlawful acquisition of knowledge? But what is the impact of this? An unlawful acquisition of knowledge. You have been given the designs of another car. Okay, so you can know and have an understanding of that design. Have you used that design? What have you done with it? What sporting advantage has that given you? How has that impacted how fast your car goes? Well, having knowledge of something and utilising something are two different things. Copying what another team has done so that you can replicate the performance of another team, well, you are using their design to impact the performance of your car. Well, there's a difference there. But in the second instance, for Tracing Point and for Aston Martin, Lawrence Stroll's team, where he has copied the designs of another team, well, for one of them we'll give you a €400,000 fine. I'm not hearing any fine for the Aston Martin infringement when it copied the Red Bull design.
Was believed to provide an unfair competitive advantage. A 30-year history of mutual disdain had fueled Mosley's desire to deliver a blow so severe that it could potentially expel Dennis from the world of motorsport. It would be the second hearing, however, that brought the drivers into sharp focus. And what followed was something straight out of a soap opera. Fernando Alonso had joined McLaren with the expectation of being their #1 driver and a title contender, a status he had been promised by team boss Ron Dennis. In the backdrop of this, Lewis Hamilton, in his debut season, had emerged as a sensation with a stellar start to his F1 career. His remarkable pace and competitiveness upset the delicate equilibrium within the team. While known to be promising, Hamilton's unexpected prowess had become a problem for the team. He wasn't
just like all the best you've ever seen that are win the World Championship in their first season.
supposed to usurp the dominance of Fernando Alonso. Understandably, the Spaniard's competitive spirits caught fire, and part of his siege mentality was fueled by the belief that a British driver in a British team led by a British boss would...
Oh, British bias is what they want to project it as. Or how's about just talent? How's about just somebody gets into a car and is faster than somebody else? Funny that. Equal machinery as the guy that's the reigning world champion. Are you going to tell us that he's actually been given bias machinery? That the rookie, we'll give the rookie the bias machinery, yeah?
Potentially relegate him to a secondary role. The Monaco Grand Prix added fuel to the fire when Dennis mishandled the aftermath of a 1-2 finish, with Alonso leading throughout.
When you're taking these decisions,
you have to think for the team.
Hamilton felt he had been denied the opportunity to challenge Alonso. The Hungarian Grand Prix later that summer brought a darker turn to an already tense season for McLaren. During qualifying, Lewis reneged on an agreement to let Fernando pass and ruined his chances at pole position. Alonso really didn't like that. In a swift response,
ruined his chances at pole position. That's not really accurate, is it? Because there were still runs to go. So again, be careful how you receive and present information. Okay, because how did it? If Lewis reneged on an agreement, which I'm not trying to justify, but let's be clear of the impact of that. It didn't ruin Alonso's chances of pole position because Alonso got pole position. But because Alonso didn't like something, and Lewis was the victim of Alonso's conduct throughout this season as well, but this is how Alonso deals with it.
Alonso took matters into his own hands, and so one of Formula One's most shocking moments was born.
But he's definitely putting the harder tyres on. There's Lewis Hamilton queuing up behind him, and have they raised the lollipop to let Alonso out? Yep, they want him out of there. No, Alonso's not getting on with it. Only a minute and 40 to go. Is he blocking Hamilton here? Is that a bit of a tactic within the team there to give Hamilton a bit of a headache? I think it might well be. That's really... I don't know if he has, Damon. I think he deliberately did that.
Ron Dennis was furious, and Alonso was handed a 5-place grid penalty. On race day, August 5th, things had boiled over so much that Fernando Alonso had confronted Ron Dennis in the confines of his motorhome. Rumour had it that Alonso threw down the gauntlet and threatened to unleash a trove of incriminating email exchanges involving McLaren's test driver Pedro de la Rosa and the controversial Coghlan to the FIA. Max Mosley later recounted how Dennis initially downplayed the threat, assuring him there was no substance to it.
Well, I go back to the question. If you say it's not credible, then you must believe that from the very top that team was involved in deceit and cover-up.
Well, I'm trying to be kind.
Well, I'm asking you to be honest.
Well, yes, but the thing is that you don't actually know. If somebody looks you in the eye that you've known for 40 years and says, Max, believe me, I didn't know.
Let's be clear. People lie. People commit crimes. People do things that are wrong. And then when you go, oh, you've done that wrong, they'll say, no, I haven't. It's called lying, everybody. We've all forgot. And yet everybody has their opinion in the comment section. Everybody thinks they're entitled to their opinion. It's just different opinions. No, it's lying. Okay? It's lying. And these lies are used to cover up wrongdoing. And some of that wrongdoing is classified as being criminal activity, perpetrating crimes. And people lie because they don't admit to it. They don't just go, oh yeah, you've got me. Put me in prison now. I'll pay the 100 million fine now. It's fine. It's fine. No, they're going to try and avoid that. So they lie. And that's exactly what you're going to find with Formula One when it comes to the Abu Dhabi fraud. They're going to lie. When you confront them and say, you did this, they'll say, no, I didn't. And we'll get the wank rags in the comments saying, no, he said he didn't. So he didn't. No, there's going to be a lot of people wanting to tell a lot of lies to try and absolve themselves of consequence for what they actually did. And what they actually did is all on video, because that's their actual actions. That's what they did, which is the evidence of what they actually did. Not what they say they did, it's what they actually did. That's evidence. And again, we get the wank rags in the comment section go, no, that's not evidence. That's the evidence of what they did. But like I say, some of you shouldn't be here. This is like university level education and you didn't even pass high school. So let's move on.
It's actually quite difficult to say, well, I think he's telling a lie.
But Dennis had underestimated this situation, and he had
Mosley, it's actually quite difficult to say he's telling a lie. When you've got no evidence of what actually happened, Max Mosley, and he's dead now, then yeah, you've got to look at the balance of probability and you've got to look at the evidence of what you can glean. And the evidence of what you can glean is you can compare the two designs. So the allegation is you are in possession of the designs. Okay. And he says, I didn't use them. Okay, well, let's have a look at the designs of the cars then. Let's have a look at what you produced and let's compare the two. Here's the Ferrari design, here's the Ferrari car. Right, let's have a look at the components. Let's have a look at the McLaren car. Is any of the designs looking very, very almost like they exactly replicate the Ferrari car? Oh, something's identical. You say you didn't use it. It's funny how you managed to get the identical thing here, right? But what I've just said there apparently didn't happen. I don't know. I've not got access to the two cars to make the comparisons that way. So this is where I would advise you to go and do your research and see what you can find. But that's the way you find out whether somebody's lying or not. Abu Dhabi 2021, we don't need to go, oh, it's difficult to know whether they're lying or not because we've got exactly what they said at the time, we've got exactly what they did at the time, and we've got knowledge of what should be going on. And everything that they did do isn't what should be going on. And everything that everybody did isn't what should be going on. So something like that doesn't happen by chance. It was by design. So we'll carry on.
Underestimated his star driver. Alonso's threats were not hollow, and the most expensive scandal in sporting history was on the brink of detonation. On September 5th, 2007, the FIA dropped a bombshell, declaring that new evidence had emerged in the case. Instead of a routine appeal hearing, the entire case was set to be reopened on September 13th. As it turned out, the smoking gun was indeed a collection of driver emails sent to Bernie Ecclestone, the commercial rights holder of F1.
So we've got billionaire Bernie involved now, and Bernie's concerned because this might harm his money, right? The thing that Bernie owns, it's got value that, you know, he'll one day cash in on it. Oh, this could harm this. I need to do something about this. Well, ultimately, this should be a situation that is the governing body of the sport should be dealing with. Two of the teams competing in there, in the sport, that the governing body is overseeing, there's a transfer of information that shouldn't have happened. How are we going to deal with this? Oh, bring in the person that's going to financially lose out if there's scandal, if people lose confidence in the product. Oh, billionaire Bernie will have his input on the situation. It's all about the money. It's all about the money in the show and the value of the show, isn't it? Not sporting integrity. Not the governing body doing the job of the governing body. Outside influence. Billionaires influencing government to make decisions in the interest of the billionaire. Funny that, isn't it?
It seemed Alonso had followed through on his earlier threats, prompting the FIA to summon Alonso, De La Rosa and Lewis Hamilton, and the trio was promised immunity, provided they were transparent. It would be on September 13th when the pivotal hearing took place. The team stakeholders waited in cold anticipation for the
immunity promising, no, as long as they promised they were transparent. Now, I don't really like that, but you've got to accept that people are going to lie. And people collectively are going to lie to cover up things, to cover up to prevent themselves being hit with a consequence for their actions, and to cover up their associates being hit with a consequence for their actions. So in order to try to get to the truth, deals like that are offered. I don't like it, but that is clearly a dynamic that it appeals to a way of achieving what we hope to be the truth. So let's just carry on with what they're saying.
A decision that would come as a horrifying shock to those from the Woking outfit. McLaren were disqualified from the 2007 Constructors' Championship, and
so McLaren are disqualified from the championship for being in possession of the Ferrari designs. Somebody from Ferrari who has got a personal vendetta against Ferrari because he feels that Ferrari snubbed him has gone, right, well, I'm going to get all your designs and hand them to another team. an individual from that other team has received them and then gone to his team, McLaren, and now they're in possession of that information. How do they use that information? Have they used that information to make design changes to their own car to benefit their own car? How has that impacted them? This is something that we don't know. We don't get to scrutinise the two vehicles and see how similar they are. We don't get to see whether there was an original McLaren design that then got changed having received these Ferrari documents, and they've looked at the Ferrari way of doing it and gone, actually, that's better, let's change our way. We don't get to see that. That's the kind of process where you'd established how have they utilised this information. But rather than any of that, they hit them with a penalty. $100 million. We don't know what, if any, of that Ferrari intellectual property McLaren used. We do not know. They could have. We don't know. From looking at the two cars externally, they don't look identical. They don't look a copy of... The McLaren doesn't look a copy of the Ferrari car. But we don't know if part of those designs on the Ferrari were copied or utilised in some way in that McLaren design. We don't know. Those scrutineers at the FIA would have had a chance, you would have hoped, in the investigation, you'd have thought that would have determined the magnitude of the inquiry and the infringement. But we don't know. They're not transparent in that. But what we can see with our own eyes is the similarities between Tracing Point and the Mercedes car and the Red Bull car of 2023, sorry, the Aston Martin car of 2023, and how similar it is to the Red Bull car, where they've copied the design. You've copied, but we'll leave that, don't worry about that. Here, they've got the information and they could copy. We don't know if they have, but we'll fine them $100 million for that. That doesn't make sense, does it?
Slapped with a record $100 million fine. Internally, McLaren was in absolute shambles, and unbeknownst to the public, Alonso had already set plans in motion to join Ferrari for the 2008 season, cutting short his tenure with McLaren. The wheels were in motion, and everything was going off the rails. As for the Drivers' Championship, thanks to lobbying from Eccleston and the Corporation of the Drivers, Hamilton and Alonso retained their points, keeping the title race alive. Meanwhile, things were heating up in the McLaren garage, as Hamilton was 12 points ahead of Alonso going into the Chinese Grand Prix. Hamilton started the weekend in pole, but things got heated when he claimed the crew was trying to lower his tyre pressure. Even though he started out in the lead when the rain hit, Hamilton eventually fell behind due to
So Hamilton claiming that his own team, McLaren, are sabotaging Hamilton's chance of victory. So why would they do that? Are they being influenced externally by, for example, the FIA saying to McLaren, you're not going to win? Is it Bernie Eccleston saying, you're not going to win? You've already been disqualified from the Constructors' Championship. We're not going to have one of your cars winning the Drivers' Championship because that's not going to look good. We're not going to have a rookie driver winning the Formula One Championship. This is something that we sell to the world as being the best sport, the pinnacle of motor racing, and somebody that's never done it before at this level has come straight in and beaten all of the experienced competitors. And if somebody can just come into the sport and beaten all of those with experience, what does that say about everything? It undermines it, doesn't it? It undermines everybody that's ever taken part in the sport who you've hyped up to be all-time greats. You're not going to let him win, are you?
strategic mistakes and damaged tyres. Raikkonen took advantage of the situation.
I remember watching that race real time, and I remember shouting at the TV for several laps because you could see white emerging on Hamilton's car, on the tyres where it appeared that the rubber had gone through to the canvas. It very much looked like that. And you could see that there was parts of the track where he was losing grip. And he had the margin to be able to pit for new tyres. Might have lost a couple of places, but the point being, you're better off picking up points for the overall World Championship season-long points tally rather than risk not. He'd have picked up at least 4 points, 5 points that race, I would have guessed. But I don't know what the point structure was. But he would have definitely got points if he'd have pitted, come out on fresh tyres, which had given him the grip. And I was shouting at the TV for several laps that race, going, why aren't you doing this? And then eventually, when he did, he lost control, went into the gravel, race over. And that was just one of the sorts of things that I saw happening. And this is where you get disillusioned with the sport. Go, well, it's a load of bollocks. Who's making these decisions? Who is his race engineer? Who is making these decisions when somebody could be sat at home in front of a telly, clearly seeing what's happening, and you can make decisions which are clearly going to lead to better outcomes? You think, well, what's going on here? And that was one of the things that just made me disillusioned with the entire show.
Situation to win the race, while Alonso finished in second position, igniting a thrilling three-way fight in Brazil. Hamilton was in first place with 107 points, 4 ahead of Alonso and 7 ahead of Raikkonen as the championship finale approached in Brazil. Fans' enthusiasm was contagious, and F1 ratings were skyrocketing even before the
A three-way fight for the title going into the last race. The ratings are skyrocketing. The 2025 World Championship, everybody. Tune in, it's the most exciting oh, no, sorry, this was 2007. History repeats itself, doesn't it? They know how to attract the fans. They know how to excite the kiddies. They know what works for them. Growth.
race began, McLaren faced an unusual situation. An FIA representative was specifically assigned to them to ensure equal treatment for both cars, a response to Alonso's previous claims of sabotage. The race commenced with Hamilton dropping to third.
The facade of integrity and regulation is all manipulation.
Off the line, and then everything went curiously wrong as he lost all gears on lap 8.
But no, he's slowing. Impossible!
Despite a remarkable fight back and an incredible season, Hamilton's championship dreams had crumbled. McLaren's strategic prowess couldn't salvage the situation. Kimi Raikkonen would go on to claim victory, with Fernando Alonso only being able to finish third. Both McLarens had finished on equal points, but Kimi had overtaken them with 1 point and clinched.
You couldn't make it up, could you? You couldn't make it up. You know, obviously, Ferrari, the victims of one of their disgruntled employees giving away their intellectual property. The team that benefited from that, McLaren, being disqualified. And though, despite them drivers being allowed to compete, it turned out that them drivers didn't win because of late season problems. But the Ferrari car did win. Oh, that's justice, isn't it? That's justice. You couldn't manufacture it that way, could you?
The driver's title for Ferrari. The series of blunders by McLaren, so uncharacteristic for the
It was just uncharacteristic blunders.
team, left many puzzled. The FIA dropped the investigation into McLaren's 2008 chassis in December.
The difficulty we have is that you're not going to find on the McLaren a part that was designed by Ferrari.
The best ever.
And ultimately, that's the problem. That's the problem. You've got the Ferrari designs, and then you've got the McLaren designs. Now, if you can compare the original McLaren design and see if that's what their car was then produced, look at the timeline of when they received the Ferrari design, see if there were any modifications made to those components to make them modified so that they were in some way utilising the information from Ferrari to modify their car. Maybe you could do that, but if that doesn't exist, how do you demonstrate that McLaren has actually got a performance advantage from that information that it is now in possession of. Because being in possession of information and using it to gain a performance advantage, they're not exactly the same thing. But you compare that with a team directly copying the design of another car, Racing Point copying the Mercedes car, Aston Martin copying the Red Bull car. Well, you are copying their design to get a performance advantage. That's clear what you're doing, and yet you're not penalising that. Rather strange, isn't it?
Evidence, perhaps, that McLaren had sabotaged Hamilton's car was when he was asked in 2012 about the events of Spygate, only for him to say,
"I didn't know at the time, but I do now. It's not something I can talk about."
This certainly hinted towards a strategic game orchestrated by Dennis and McLaren, manipulating the situation to ensure the FIA backed off the 2008 car investigation. And before the
manipulating the situation to make the FIA back off. So, we can look at what's happened in recent years. We can look at post-2021. We've got the change of regulations for 2022, where Red Bull, their 2022 car was by far better than every other car on the grid. The 2023 car was even more by far better than any other car on the grid. The start of the 2024 season, that advantage is still there. We get to about 9 races into the season, and all of a sudden, the Red Bull car, the performance drops off. The other teams have magnificently caught up, or the McLaren has started to. But Max still holds on for the championship. And then we want the narrative for 2025 that now actually the Red Bull car is a tractor. The Red Bull car is really slow now, and it's only Max being the best you've ever seen that gives it any chance whatsoever. That's not the way it works, okay? Why is it that the Red Bull car... we started the season under Christian Horner, and it's struggling. Everything's struggling at Red Bull, and then we changed to McKee's. He's suddenly found some performance in the Red Bull, because the McLarens were dominating at the start of the season with Oscar and Lando. But then it's going to be the best comeback you've ever seen with Max Verstappen. You know, T-Max. It's ominous that Max is going to be lurking in their rearview mirror, gaining ground at every race. He's going to overcome the 100-point deficit. He's going to be the biggest comeback ever. Stay watching, kiddies. It's exciting, isn't it? Adds to the narrative. Well, why was that car so slow? What behind-the-scene agreements have been agreed can happen? How does it benefit the show? Funny this, isn't it?
The dust could settle on the 2007 season and McLaren's controversy. On December 11th, 2007, McLaren accused Renault of possessing sensitive information about their 2007.
McLaren then accused Renault of having sensitive information about the McLaren design. Right, so Alonso, when he's at McLaren, still got ties with Renault, which is where he came from, and then he went back to, right? All of a sudden, now, McLaren accusing Renault of having their intellectual property. Yeah? Spygate 2. Because nobody talks about Spygate 2 and Alonso's role in that, do they?
Car. The hearing was scheduled for December, and on December 6th, 2007, Renault was found in breach of the sporting code.
So Renault is found in breach. So Renault is found with what? Has Renault got some intellectual property now of McLaren? So does that mean that Renault get a $100 million fine as well?
But unlike McLaren, they escaped penalties for a reason.
Why is that then? Why is that? Renault, Flavio Briatore, Alonso, no penalty here. Who's getting the penalties, who's not? Is this fair? Is this just all a manipulation?
Reasons that were not completely explained. Separately, an Italian
But that wasn't explained. Don't you worry, you little heads.
court would deal with the fallout for Spygate core participation Nigel Stepney. The court sentenced Stepney to 1 year and 8 months in prison for sabotage, industrial espionage, sporting fraud, and attempted serious
sporting fraud. Yeah, and for sporting fraud, jail sentence. Yep, Abu Dhabi 2021. How many of you are guilty of sporting fraud? Abu Dhabi 2021. How many people are guilty of sporting fraud? That includes all participants, and that includes all of you in broadcasting who lied to the population as part of the fraud.
Injury. Stepney was also labelled persona non grata by the FIA, who warned teams not to hire him without first conducting extensive background checks.
Yeah, you should have not hired Adrian Newey without extensive background checks into his previous cheating in the sport and his role in the Abu Dhabi fraud. You should not have hired Jonathan Wheatley without serious background checks and his involvements in the Abu Dhabi 2021 fraud. And nobody should be hiring Christian Horner, who is now looking to buy a part of Flavio Briatore's Renault. Oh, they call it Alpine these days, just a different name. Same cheating team, different name. Same cheat, different name. Similar to Tracing Point, now called Aston Martin, owned by the one that just copies and pastes, the billionaire Lawrence Stroll. Just do your background checks, everybody. Just do your background checks. You know, Oracle Red Bull Racing. Oracle, Larry Ellison just bought TikTok, and a lot of people's accounts are being deleted off TikTok because if those accounts are revealing information that Larry Ellison wants the world to not know, your account will be deleted from TikTok. The control of social media, controlling the narrative. Oracle, yes, Oracle, Red Bull Racing.
Nigel Stepney would also play no further part in the world of Formula One, and he only continued to work in the world of motorsports for a few more years before the tragic event that unfolded on May 2nd, 2014, when he was hit by a lorry on the M20 highway, seemingly of his own will. What could have possibly driven him to do this? Did the fallout from Spygate follow him and shadow his thoughts at every turn? Or were there more sinister reasons at play? Unfortunately, the only man that could have answered those questions was Nigel Stepney. For the teams, the ramifications ran deeper and lingered longer than anticipated. Mercedes, who were at the time McLaren's partner and engine supplier, bore the brunt of the financial penalty, a substantial $40 million.
So Mercedes paid $40 million of that McLaren fine. All right. Mercedes pay $40 million. So McLaren are in some sort of debt to Mercedes, aren't they? So if Mercedes want to be party to the Abu Dhabi fraud, contrive the outcome of that to set up a last lap shootout to excite the kiddies for the future growth of the sport, growing the value of that Mercedes team from below $1 billion to 4.6 billion it's now valued at. That's a recouping of that 40 million they paid back there, isn't it? McLaren, you'll do what we tell you to do. We need you to feign a slow puncture for Lando so that Ted Kravitz in the pits can say, "So, Crofty, are we in for another tyre twist?" Crofty. Anybody else has got links with Mercedes as well? Who else had links with Mercedes? Well, there's Mick Schumacher, Michael's lad. He'll take part in the dance-off with Nicholas Latifi. Who does Nicholas Latifi drive for? Oh, the team where Mercedes supply their engines as well. Yeah, you know how to put it into the wall, don't you, Nicholas? Don't you worry your little head. He denies the allegation. We'll all lie to deny the allegations against us because nobody wants to be found guilty of the crimes that we're guilty of doing.
Relationship between the two corporations deteriorated further when Ron Dennis took the daring task of building the MP412C, McLaren's second road car, against...
Yes, just like when Adrian Newey designs a Red Bull road car, supercar, hypercar, whatever it is, track car. But it's your chance to own that car that's been designed by a genius, and that's a marketing ploy. And then that same genius will probably put his name to an Aston Martin car, and that will be another marketing ploy. Now buy an Aston Martin designed by Adrian Newey, because we've, told you all that he's the Wizard of Oz and he's a genius and he can make something that's magnificent. And just buy the magic beans, you gullible twats.
Mercedes desires. For McLaren, 2009 was a challenging year that began with their least competitive Formula 1 car in years and ended with a disappointing season. The championship title slipped through their fingers, ultimately secured by Brawn. After Honda pulled out, Ross Brawn took charge of the team and made sure it survived. Mercedes dreamed of having their own team, more visibility and total control as they considered doing it alone. This strategy change needed McLaren's consent due to the exclusive alliance. Needless to say, they got it. Thus began Mercedes' reign of terror in 2014.
Mercedes' reign of terror. What's that all about? The war on terror? What's the war on terror? Is this where we go into other countries and bomb the shit out of them, label them as terrorists, and then steal their oil reserves? I think that was a war on terror, wasn't it? 20 years of the war on terror. Where all these multinationals now have got the rights to the oil. Oh, it's just like the drugs are now the latest terror threat to the USA, and Venezuelan oil seems to be the reward of it. Is there a war on terror in Greenland? Is there any minerals there that are terrifying the world? Who knows? Who knows? The war on terror.
The landscape changed for McLaren post-2010. They were no longer the sole focus of Mercedes. Despite being title contenders in 2010 and 2012, McLaren's competitive standing dwindled by 2013. By 2014, McLaren found themselves trailing by 2 seconds, and from 2015, the loss of Mercedes engines marked the start of an absolute circus act that was McLaren's partnership with Honda. This stormy road ended in 2017 when Ron Dennis, the architect of McLaren's greatness, was ousted following a falling out with his longtime partner and former friend, Mansour Ojay. The company's comeback began under new leadership, and since 2021, they've been a Mercedes engine client again. Despite winning a race in 2021 and breaking a 9-year dry spell, McLaren is still far from the competitive.
The race that they won in 2021 was Monza, when Max Verstappen ended up on Lewis Hamilton's head. That's what you get when you don't leave the room for Max. In Verstappen rules, everybody, the actual rules of Formula 1 is that he was behind trying to make it around the outside of a corner. So, no.
Dominating force it once was. And that, all of that, because of a series of events set in motion by one man who is no longer here to reveal why he kickstarted the biggest scandal in F1 history. That being said, if you're looking for a story that ended on a better note, you should check out my first video on my new channel, DFU Recaps, where I will make short 5 to 6 minute videos on legendary and current F1 races. See you guys there.
Right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave a link to the Daily Fuel Up. I'm going to leave a link to this video if you want to go and watch that video without my interruption. And obviously, if you want to go and subscribe over there and look at his other channel, please feel free to do so. Do your research. Don't just take my word for it. I'm just showing you the information that's out there and then adding to it. I'm showing you, consider it this way. Because a lot of people don't consider it that way. Okay, they don't stop to think about it in a different way. And that's what you actually need to do. We're not encouraged to think about it in a different way. You're not encouraged to pick it apart and basically work out, what are they not saying here? What else is being comparable to this, where actually something different took place? A different outcome. Who is this actually impacting? Who does it advantage? Who does it not? Who do they penalise? Who don't they penalise? This entire thing is a manipulation, okay? We shouldn't be trusting Formula 1. I don't trust Formula 1. I'm not saying that all of those championships that Hamilton won under Mercedes or McLaren were authentic, okay? But what I don't have access to, in the same way that anybody that jumps up in the comment section, what we don't have access to is the inner workings of this show. I don't have the evidence But we've got people that want to project hate. Oh, they were cheating. Okay, go and prove it. Go and make a video. Evidence it. Oh, you're not evidencing. I am, because I'm showing you what took place. And that's not allowed to take place. It's not authentic. You don't know that. And the reason you don't know that is because you've been told that it's allowed to take place. I don't think it's mandatory, but that's normally on a wet day where they don't. And if they do, how long? That's why you were mind conditioned. Okay, Martin Brundle was lying to you. You won't believe me. You'll believe Martin Brundle. Okay, but he's paid to lie to you so that show makes billions. I'm just saying the truth, that these rules exist for a reason, and they lie about that. Oh, it's just to get them out of the way. No, it's not for that. It's to restore sporting fairness to all competitors having to have it after having neutralised the race to deal with a safety incident. But you can't cope with that because you're not at the level. Okay, you didn't pass your GCSEs, but you think you can go to university and challenge the professor. Okay, you're not at the level. Anyway, thank you all for your time. When I get a chance, I will go through the other video that I checked out as another source when we're exploring the notion of Spygate. Thanks for your time.